question to pose to you. What surely must be one of the best jobs in APAC IT? It's got to be working for Moët Hennessy, hasn't it? Well, Callum joins us now, who is the APAC IT Director for Moët Hennessy. Callum Dunn, welcome. Good afternoon. Great that you can join us. And delving into the world of data within the luxury goods market. Callum, let's set the scene. How are you using data to understand your luxury customers, their needs and demands, and particularly in the APAC region?
Yes, good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for having me here in this session. It's very exciting to be joining you all. We within the luxury section with Moët Hennessy, we've definitely had a very interesting journey in how we try to understand our customers, because we have the majority of our customers are actually B2B. So over the last number of years, we have delved globally and within Asia Pacific into the direct-to-consumer market and trying to understand all of you. So, you know, we know what we sell to our B2B customers, but Tim, we don't know what you're buying at those bars, which is or bars or restaurants or wherever you're consuming our products. So over the past number of years, we delved into things like direct to consumer e-commerce, because we don't actually do retail ourselves. So it's a very interesting challenge for us to try and understand the end customer when we're talking about, end consumer when we're talking about personalization and data from that point of view. So there's some interesting challenges around that for us.
Can you describe how you are leveraging that data, how you're using it to create a bespoke service to your customers, and understand how you can make your business do better? Just talk us through some of the things that you're actually doing.
That's kind of the key point for us when we're talking about consumers. So when we're trying to challenge in that consumer part of the market, it is actually quite challenging for us, because we will never discount. So when we're talking about consumer endpoint, you won't be able to come to Moët Hennessy, anything we're doing, and buy a product at a discounted price. But I don't know where most of the people are today, but if you're in Singapore, for example, and you're walking into a supermarket, you'll see our products actually at a reduced cost. So the key thing for us is, how do we make a bespoke product, or how do we do something? And you can just see over my shoulder there's the Clico arrow here with the personalization on it. So that's one of the key areas where we're using the data to offer a specific service for somebody, that you can have personalization on products, and from that we can start to understand what our consumers are liking and what they're doing. Personalization across not only Clico in this example, but we have Moët bottles that you can personalize. So that's the key piece that we used from a consumer point of view. When we're talking about our customers, there's some large areas of data that we obviously look for in terms of sales projection and sales planning, and how we get the right stock to the right locations.
And one of the obvious key concerns is about privacy and security of your data. As you say, you're chiefly concerned with B2B. But can you talk about the guardrails you have in place to ensure that the data that you're scrutinizing is secure and transparent and fair?
Sure. So the Asia Pacific region for us is from New Zealand to India. So that comes with challenges in itself, obviously. Markets, and that includes China and Korea. So two of the biggest markets with data privacy. So trying to ensure that data we capture, and nowadays China, for example, is not even just interested in your customer data; it's staff's data, employee data. So it ranges from customer facing to internal. We have challenges around all of that. So the guardrails we have in place is, obviously we have all of the guidance that we get from our data security officer based in Singapore, looking after the entire region. Every market has their individual regulations that we must adhere to. When you're a global company like us, we have added complexity, I guess, where we centralize our data. So the use of Salesforce.com, for example. So consumer data that we do have is mostly stored on servers in France. So to ensure that we comply with all of those regulations, each market has to be looked at individually. When we do launch websites, or if we do have a friends and family sale, for example, all of the localization to that customer data has to be passed through our legal teams, our local data protection officers. So we're constantly reviewing all of that. Salesforce has had its challenges. Maybe you talked about that earlier, or some people have brought that up in the last couple of months around some quite large data breaches, especially in the luxury market. So globally, we've looked at every single instance of every single location where we're storing consumer data or our customer data, and we've put some very large updates to our security policies and made sure the latest patches are in place. You know, the attacks are getting more and more sophisticated, with customer service being socially engineered. So retraining of all of our customer service agents, removing the ability to change passwords for people that were previously in place. So we've gone quite deep into how we're protecting our data, because although you put all this in place, it still comes back to the weakest link, which is the individual. You know, somebody phones up and says, I need to change my password.
Sure. Sure. Well, I think every business is susceptible to that, but the issue of differing data regulations from country to country that you describe for Moët Hennessy sounds nightmarish. How, in practical terms, do you navigate that? I mean, I wonder whether it creates issues of incorrect data along the line, because there's only so much you can do to make all of your data to sets fit different regulations, or is it a lot simpler than I'm imagining?
The one thing that we have on our side is we Moët Hennessy don't do direct retail.
Yeah.
As I said at the beginning, so we're quite lucky in that regard, in terms of we don't have retail stores. So we're not collecting consumer data in 1,000 retail stores throughout the region. So our data collection is quite limited, except when you look at markets like China, where we have WeChat channels. So we have WeChat applications, we have WeChat, we have commerce through WeChat. So those are the countries where we have larger issues with making sure the data is correct. In China, for example, where we do a piece of direct to consumer, because you have to be in that market, whether that's our core business or not, we follow the WeChat channel policies, procedures around gathering of that information, storing the information in China. That was a decision that we made a number of years ago that was different to some of the other of our sister maisons within LVMH. I made a decision that turned out to be quite a good one, to make sure that we build the customer database to remain in China. So for us, that was a great decision. Whereas some of the other groups had Salesforce, which was outside of China. They've had to since bring their data back into China to have the China regulation. Another market, obviously, that's quite tricky or becoming tricky is Korea. In Korea, again, we don't have that direct retail channel, but we do offer things like friends and family. So we are capturing some consumer data that we have to make sure that we're secure with. Yes, it is a bit of a nightmare, and it's a headache for my CISO and the DPO in the region. But so far, I think our luck is that we don't have that en masse retail customer data. From a business to business point of view, we can get round some of that data privacy by using, for example, company email addresses. So when you're not capturing it, and we had to do a big cleanup of that, by the way, because when you have customer detail, you're sometimes emailing And especially when you're dealing with small bars or restaurants, you might deal with somebody's personal email address as the manager or the owner of that restaurant. So, we're looking at ways to reduce the risk that we have by doing standard email addresses rather than a person's named email address.
Absolutely, yeah. Can you talk now about how you are leveraging your data to manage inventory, manage your supply chains, and predict demand also for luxury and rare products?
Yeah, that's the first example, I guess, of where we're starting to look at AI. I can talk about that in a minute, but the interesting thing about us from a technology point of view, that part of the business has been doing so well for so many years. We fell into a bit of a case of it's not broken, let's not fix it. But what that actually meant in terms of data flows, processes, the way we run our business, when business isn't, and it's going to sound obvious, when business isn't as good and headcounts start to come a discussion, things start to pop up that cause us problems as a business, and that's mostly around losing headcount or manual processes. And although being in the luxury industry, you might think that there's a lot of leading technology, we're still a distribution company that has supply chain. And it's worked for so many years with things that have just worked. We haven't focused on that. So what we're facing now is a lot of this manual processing and a lot of opportunity to improve our processes by digitizing. And one of the first ones we're looking at is sales planning. So that for years has been people with expertise in local markets who try to suggest where the sales might be on a big spreadsheet. And it's as simple, and it really is as non-tech as that. But that's also a big improvement that we could do with data. So we have all this data, we have years worth of data of where we sell it to and where we do, but using AI now, we're starting to implement a large sales planning AI tool that can already, after 1 month of looking at 20 years worth of data, get to the same level as the people that have been doing it. So we're able to, and the value comes in the high value products that you just mentioned. So what it allows is the lower value products that we sell, that could be, the lower end of champagne or some wine, the AI can take care of that and have a higher predictability and success than a human. So that frees up the time for our manual work that still probably needs that feel, that luxury touch, to the higher end products. So it's freeing up our sales planners and our salesmen to concentrate on the higher value products for us by introducing technology for the lower value products.
It's interesting that you say that. It's freeing up your people to do work that is better value done by a human, and employing your digital colleague to do the other stuff, shall we say. And it's interesting to hear that a company which is so associated with prestige as yours is actually, have I got this right, very early on in its AI journey. Do you just have that one use case at the moment? Are you planning anything else?
It's obviously a massive hot topic with everybody. So the challenge we have is, everybody coming to us, to their local management, and saying, I've got this use case, I've got this use case, I've got this use case. But the question back to them is, what is the value of that? So any investment we make on AI adds a cost. So when you add that cost, what are you saving? And that's the hardest part that the business don't know how to answer at the moment, to be honest. So where do we use AI at the moment? Mostly centrally. We actually have quite a few use cases back in France where we do most of our production, and quite a lot of the use cases are built around production. So there's 2 examples that we went live with this year that I can share. One of them is around tanker utilization. So when a tanker is sent to collect grapes or juice from another vineyard that's producing on behalf of us, we bring that liquid back to where we're going to make the champagne. Previously, that was done on a spreadsheet with 4 people sitting around telling the tanker driver where to go. But and it really was as manual as that up until
Yeah.
this year. So a tanker can have 3 containers within that tanker picking up juice from different vineyards. If the juice sits in the first compartment for too long, by the time we receive it, we might just have to throw it out. So this AI was able to send the tankers on the correct route with the least amount of time to the vineyards that were ready for collection. Oh no.
It's fascinating that such mundane use cases can actually be the most valuable to your company.
Yeah.
I put it to somebody who was talking earlier in our conference today. A brilliant description I read yesterday was that having AI is nothing special, but having quality data and unique data and leveraging that data. Now that is what's clever. So as a data man yourself, you'll clearly agree.
That's exactly right, and that's the other argument we always give back to our business counterparts when they come and ask. The latest discussion is around HR and HR data. You know, the HR community, when we're setting up shared services, for example, the first thing the first buzzword is, well, how do we get AI chat to answer all my questions in HR? So again, you go back to them and the first question is on the data. Well, it doesn't magically pull our data. So where is your data that we're going to train the AI to answer all these magical questions you want?
Yeah.
So HR is actually one of the first, is the probably most advanced thinking in our organization in terms of knowing where their data is and has that data available. The other side that I mentioned, the production side, so that production analysis actually can save millions of euros in wasted product. So it's a good example for the wine one. And then HR is the next area that are looking to utilize data that they have been tidying up over the last few years to make sure it's accurate. And that's quite easy to do when you put it onto staff. So if we want paid correctly and we want our salaries to be right, we have to self-service our data because, previously the whole work was put onto the HR team. And when you've got a large number of staff, it's good to put it onto us a little bit to make sure we're happy with our own data. And then once we're happy with our data, we know it's going to be accurate.
Can you touch upon the processes and the steps you've taken to make sure that your data is accurate and reliable?
Sure. I mean, the HR topic is, as I mentioned, pushing it back onto the people. So obviously, if we want paid correctly, we can now update our own bank accounts. We can update our own address. We can make sure our next of kins are correct. So there's a large piece of data that's self-service. So that's one way to do it. The other way to do it in the examples within production is we've actually always had the data, but it was just sitting idle with, not having the ability for people to really delve into years and years worth. So once you have, especially in somewhere like France and in Europe, where changing someone's role is actually quite tricky. You've got unions to contend with. You've got people are actually quite scared that if you implement a new technology, their first thought is, I'm going to lose my job, or even wait a minute, my job changes. So leveraging the data to show them that it's either not going to lose their job or being part of the change process. Because that's another thing to be, we're experiencing some issues in Japan at the moment where we're trying to implement new technology, and bringing the people who have worked on that data along in the journey to validate, to update, to maintain it is actually very key as well. Because if you try to do a top-down approach to the adoption or the change or the management of that data, you get scared people and scared reactions. So working together and moving that data along, understanding it, analyzing it, and the people who actually are working in it day to day are the ones that know it as well. So different markets, different maturities in terms of the data that they collect is also, 13 markets plus distribution, travel, retail, high net worth, and production we have in Asia as well. We've got 5 wineries in Asia. The data needs across all of those are very different.
I'm glad that you've mentioned the people aspect of it, because we can talk about data and AI and other buzzwords and all sorts until the end of the day, but actually it's about empowering your people, isn't it? And embracing that change. I don't know if this is an insensitive question, but have you seen a shift in your workforce roles, simply a change in roles, or has AI so far caused you to shed roles? I mean, this is you've touched upon this already. This is the greatest fear facing companies at the moment.
In Asia Pacific, we haven't implemented a huge amount at the moment because, as I mentioned, the main AI implementation has been in Europe. We have two initiatives coming to Asia that are maybe three that are going to probably be impactful. There's supply chain planning, the best routing for all of our products. Then there's the sales planning, and then the other one is the automation of just purely our order taking with our customers. So like I mentioned earlier, the B2B part of the business was kind of ignored for a number of years because we were making so much money. People ignored manual problems. So all they did was they hired more people to fill in broken bits of the process. Now, when the business is more stable or dropping slightly, and then you're not allowed to rehire people, those cracks become quite big. So one of the key areas is, can we automate sales order? One of the largest teams we have in that area is customer service because they're taking the orders. So when you go and ask customer service to start validating a technology around automating process, people aren't silly. They see, wait a minute, if this comes in and this happens, then why do they need me? So it's a very tricky part there around, re-educating or reusing those people, because there is two sides of it. There is, do we come at it from a headcount point of view? And if it's a pure headcount point of view, it's top down. We'll implement it, we'll lose people. If we're looking at it from a production or an increase of productivity point of view, if we take the headcount as this is the lowest we're going to go, now we need to empower people, we need to change and reskill. That way you get more buy-in and you get people to realize, oh, wait a minute, okay, instead of taking 4 hours, now it takes 1 hour. That means I've got 3 hours. Well, what am I going to do with that? Oh, there's all these other things. So that's the approach where we're more likely to take. Natural attrition will happen and people will leave and people won't like change. So, okay, you lose that. But then if we're not really allowed to be hiring 20, 30 more people, we need to be able to offer AI as a backup, a support, to give people more time to do the work. And that's more the direction we're in.
I'm really glad we've had this conversation. You've echoed what so many other businesses are saying, that it's actually empowering staff. It's making their working days better. It's not the perceived threat that we'll always see in the media so much as a way of improving the work you do and improving efficiency. And that's got to be good for the people as well as the business, hasn't it?
Absolutely. I can just give you one other funny example of in Singapore. Recently, we hired some interns, and the interns have come straight from school and straight from university, and they were asked to do some of the manual work that's been done for years by some of our older staff. Here's what we do on a daily basis, go and do it. Within 2 days of the interns turning up and doing it, they've gone, this is ridiculous. They've gone off and written themselves some automation of the process that they were. Now, I've had to come in behind and either undo it or redo it correctly. But the fact that, it's obvious to the next gen, and this is another point, the next generation of the workforce coming in, because in Japan, for example, the people that have been doing customer service have been there 25, 30 years. So they're quite happy doing the manual work and things. So the next generation come in and do not want to do these jobs. So we have to adapt and have to evolve if we want people coming into the workforce. Because you hand someone this, go and copy these PDFs into a spreadsheet and key it into this. Like, no, why would I do that? That makes no sense at all. So they're now challenging us as well to speed up this adoption because they see it's crazy.
I can detect the excitement in the way that you're putting these answers across about the transformation that's occurring in your company for the good. So just look ahead. Finally, what's in your intro? What are you looking ahead at? Any new technologies or trends? Anything different that you'll be doing to leverage your data to boost Moët Hennessy to that next level?
The first thing you touched on earlier is the consolidation of all our data.
Yeah.
So putting all of our data into a single source is something we've been doing for the last 2 to 3 years. And we're now at a point where almost all of our, and what I'm talking about is our transactional financial data, our supply chain data, all of that has been centralized onto we chose a technology which is Google Cloud Platform. So we're using GCP for all of that. So that has been on the radar and been worked on for the last 2 to 3 years, with also changing the organization to be more data oriented or data thought, because we didn't have a data team centrally 5 years ago, and now we have a very strong data team. So the technology has been driven from the fact that, like you mentioned earlier, how do we tidy up the data? So centralize it, tidy it up. Now we're in a position to start thinking about this question of, right, where are the areas we need to improve and where are the areas we need to bring in technology? One of the key things I always tell my team to think about is our existing platforms and our existing systems will not survive unless there is some sort of AI embedded from the technology provider. So our first use cases, I'm pushing for existing technologies. What is the vendor or what is the partner doing already to leverage AI? So some of our platforms already, where it used to be, the OCR capability might not have been great. We use AI OCR. You already see a massive uplift in, existing platforms. So the first usages for us are actually existing platforms. And then for us, we will see whether there are opportunities that bring the correct value to introduce something new. So for the moment, we're just concentrating on our existing platforms, and then hopefully some use cases will bubble up that are still outside of that we feel we could introduce something new. But jumping to something new, most people will probably on this call will know that it's, the early adopters or something, the whack-a-mole approach to solving problems with it doesn't work. So you just have to, our approach is definitely going to be a bit more, let's find the real value products or the real value solutions before we implement something.
Sure. I think evolution rather than revolution is a message that everybody's getting across. Callum Dunn from Moët Hennessy, thank you for your time and your insights this afternoon. I wish this wasn't a virtual event. I wish we were talking face to face, because of course you'd have brought in some of your products for us to examine afterwards, but it's all there. It's all over your shoulder. Callum, thanks a million for joining us. I hope you found that chat as interesting as I did.